Welcome to the Bigfoot Society. In this episode, I talked to Eric Palacios, a Texas-based filmmaker and investigative journalist. Eric shares about FOIA requests and how these can be done in the field of Bigfoot. Please do your due diligence and your own research before embarking on a FOIA recovery journey of your own. If you've submitted a FOIA request regarding Bigfoot yourself and have results you would want to share, please reach out immediately to me after this episode. Remember, your information could be the key to unlocking this mystery once and for all, so please don't hesitate to contact me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking with Mr. Eric Palacios tonight. He is an indie film producer, director with a background in investigative journalism. I've been wanting to talk to him for a while. Eric, how's it going tonight?
It's going pretty good, Jeremiah. Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to give you the reins right away. One thing we want to talk about is you've had a really interesting encounter, and I know my audience loves to hear people talk about their encounters, and we've got some really important things to talk about at the end as well. Those that are listening, you want to make sure you hit the entire episode for sure. But Eric, go right ahead, man.
Yeah, so I really don't think I can talk about my encounter in full without kind of describing where it's located. We're here in the Central Texas area. To be a little bit more specific, it's Williamson County, and we are part of the Balcones Escarpment, which is like a mini Grand Canyon. It's actually visible from space, and it has creek runoffs, caves, and a lot of underground aquifers. And I've lived here pretty much my entire life, and that kind of feeds into an encounter that I did have in 2011. And 2011 was a strange year because that was the worst drought Texas had ever faced. So there were a lot of water levels that were lower than normal. A lot of caves had been exposed and access to a lot of places that were normally off limits. And so we took a short walk from my backyard into the brushy creek where a lot of this stuff happens. And like a normal summer day, it was June. We'd been out there fishing. It was about 6 of us. We caught a lot of fish that day because there was pretty much a trickle into pools. It was so bad. The drought was just that bad. It just trickles into little pools filled with catfish and bass and stuff like that. So we caught a lot of fish that day, and probably there for about 6 or so hours, and it started getting dark. And as we were leaving, there's about 6 of us there walking single file because it's a sloped area along the brushy creek. We were in a deeper area than we would normally be because the water was so low. So we were walking up at an angle, and the best way to describe it is we heard pretty much like this massive sound like an elephant coming through the brush. And for whatever reason, we couldn't lay our eyes on it. It got really close. It had to be within about 10 feet of us. And we were 6 big boys. We had stuff to take care of ourselves out there, but we were all trembling little kids out there. And this thing was just crashing through the woods. I would associate it with someone turning the car stereo up on a metal song, and it just keeps getting louder and louder. And finally you have to reach out and grab the knob to turn it down. That was where we were at. And one of the guys I was with bent down and grabbed a rock and threw it in that direction. And we never heard anything after that. And we walked that way, crossed the creek, and we made it back to our house. Really didn't think about it for several years after that until we were all together and we started talking about it. And one of my buddies was like, "Oh man, what could that have been?" And I started doing the deep dive here in my area. And there's been a long history of Bigfoot Sasquatch activity dating back to the 1800s. So much so that there's a road right off the brushy creek called Hairy Man Road. And that's not a myth. That's the actual name of the road. The street sign says it and everything. And the legend goes it was a kid's family passing through in covered wagon times. And the kid fell off the wagon and he ended up being stranded out there, and he became like a wild hairy man or whatever. And that's kind of story we grew up with as kids, hearing that, but I never really put too much thought into it. I thought it was just an interesting story. And that is when I started doing the research for my documentary, The Beast of Brushy Creek. I found a page in a book from a guy who was actually the local postmaster in the area. He had written a book, and he detailed the night of this event that took place. It was in 1966. A group of high school kids were hanging out on the Herringman Road after midnight. And one of the kids, his name was actually Shorty Caldwell. We have all the names of the kids that were out there. Shorty Caldwell was the name of the boy who got stranded out there. And he says that he tells this amazing tale of being chased out of the Herringman Road area by a giant hair-covered man, a being. And he got to school the next day and started talking about it, and the story kind of caught like wildfire. And a few years after that, it was officially named Hairy Man Road. But it wasn't without its people that were opposed to it. A lot of the old timers didn't want that name, for whatever reason, being attached to that road. Some of the bigger names in the community would be like C.D. Folks. We have a school named C.D. Folks. He was one of the people that was raising a campaign to rename the road Fern Bluff, and fortunately that never happened. But long history of Bigfoot activity in the area, and I guess with that encounter that I had in 2011, unknowingly became kind of part of what's going on here.
It's so very interesting, especially because you're close to Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah, we're a little bit north of Austin, but not that far. Yeah, for sure.
Fascinating. And just to have all that Bigfoot history. I love your passion for investigative journalism. It comes out it comes out super quick when you just start looking at the different things that you've put together. And I myself am a fan of that because I have, as you can imagine, I've got a lot of that myself. In fact, even tonight, I'm digging into reports from actually a place in North Texas, Lake Texoma, up by the Oklahoma border, and people are reporting Bigfoot activity plus other things. As a person who's investigating, you're always looking into something. But I first heard about you, Eric, when I was looking into some FOIA stuff, and your Media Palace YouTube channel had come up, and it is just such a very interesting subject. Do you mind sharing with the listeners what a FOIA request is?
Yeah, a FOIA request is a Freedom of Information Act request, and that grants us information from any or the majority of government agencies that I wouldn't say withholding records from us. They just haven't officially been released to the public. You have to ask for these things. If you don't ask, you never know what the answer might be. That's what a FOIA request is in a nutshell. It's a way to get information, pretty much. Yeah.
So interesting. And I've tried to talk to someone on this podcast that has done FOIA requests for Bigfoot related information. I've tried for years and I've been unsuccessful. So when I stumbled upon the Media Palace YouTube account, I've got to talk to Eric. He has been uncovering some incredible things. You uncovered more information about the incident at the Mammoth Cave Park in Kentucky. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was one of the more interesting cases of me doing a FOIA request. I had heard about this in 2019, which is around the same time I started getting into the subject. And it was huge news. CNN had covered it. A bunch of the major news organizations had talked about it, or at least featured it on their website, if not devoted a segment to it. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I never really gave 2 cents about it until I started doing a deep dive into research. And I was like, if it happened in a national park, that information should be public because it's federal. It belongs to everybody, that information at least. And so I did some digging on the National Parks website, and I actually found the incident number that was associated with the event that had taken place. And for people that don't know what happened, the story goes there was a man out there with his son, and they had supposedly witnessed a Bigfoot, and they were in such danger that he ended up shooting at it. He fired a shot at it. There were witnesses in the area that approached the man, and the man told them that he had shot at Bigfoot. And so it kind of spun out of control when the media got a hold of it. And there were all types of conspiracy theories and a little bit of everything going on with this. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to find when I did the FOIA request, but with that incident number, I was able to write a detailed FOIA request of the information that I wanted, dates and everything corresponding to the event that had taken place. So I did that, and I waited, I want to say close to a month before I got anything back. But when I got it back, man, it was a treasure trove of information. We have almost everything on this guy. Really, the only thing we don't have, because it's exempt from a FOIA request, is the identity of this person. but we have pictures of the gun that was used. We have the witness statements from when the police interviewed the witnesses that were on location there. We have tickets that were written to the gentleman that fired the weapon. We have a little bit of everything. There was also 2 videos that the national parks had, but unfortunately they wanted over $3,000 for those videos. And I wasn't really comfortable forking over that money without knowing what was on the videos. So I was like, yeah, I'll just stick to the reports. And like I said, we got a kind of a treasure trove of information, and I can go ahead and construct what really happened out there. So the guy was out there getting content for his YouTube channel, and that becomes aware when you read the police officer's general report statement. He says, hey, this guy was, prior to coming out here, prior to coming out here, he had made videos on his YouTube channel saying that he was going to come out to Mammoth Cave and go Bigfoot hunting. And if anything happens, he's going to run towards Bigfoot, not run away. Not only that, but we have the reports where the officer approached. The officer asked if he had a weapon. He denied having a weapon, even though he had a gun hiding under the floorboards of his vehicle. And he got cited for that. He got cited for lying to a police officer, lying to law enforcement. Now, I don't know how much faith you would have in someone that's already lying to police to believe their Bigfoot story, because when the cops approached him again, he didn't say one word about Bigfoot. He just pretty much said that his gun malfunctioned. He dropped it and his gun went off. Nothing about Bigfoot. The only ones that relayed that Bigfoot information were the witnesses. There were 3 witnesses that were there that had been approached by this man that had claimed that he had shot Bigfoot. None of that happened. It was a complete fabrication, unfortunately. I really wish the news agencies would have printed a redaction, but maybe they didn't do the FOIA request. They didn't do the footwork. And I know people have been working on this story for a long time. Researchers in Kentucky had been researching it, and they were saying, oh, it's us. They were keeping it under wraps. The local sheriffs, so the local sheriffs don't have anything to do with it. It's federal park that the feds have jurisdiction over. And in this case, it was the National Park Service. So that was my first big realization when I started doing these FOIA requests, actually finding some information. And now I think it's honestly safe to close that file. We can close this one and move on to the next one. That was my goal while getting into this FOIA request stuff. I wanted to see if I could find any breadcrumbs that might lead to other things like a 911 call maybe, or a photo. It's been really interesting doing these FOIA requests and seeing some of these results. And I have a lot more that I've got coming up. So I'm really excited to put out what I'm working on.
Oh, in the documentaries you've got on your Media Palace channel, you've got one on that Mammoth Cave, and it's so informative.
Sure.
You've got all the documents. You've got the different things in the video, and listeners, you need to make sure you're subscribed to it. Hit the bell so you don't miss anything. And then just recently, you've got the video on, you got a 911 Bigfoot call from East Texas. There's some really interesting comments in that video.
That one was shocking. I didn't even think that was a real call, to be honest with you. I had heard about it through some secondhand stuff saying, hey, there was a Bigfoot call that had taken place in East Texas. And I was like, oh, whatever. It was probably just some media stunt or something like that. Someone made a post or something that got picked up. But I did the research and I actually found, again, an incident number and an incident summary report from the Harrison County Sheriff's Department. And the incident said that man calls sheriff's office to report Bigfoot on trail camera. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Let me see how far this goes. And so again, I wrote the FOIA request having that report number. I was able to put the date and everything, all the necessary stuff that you need for a good FOIA request. I was able to put in here. And within, I want to say less than 24 hours, I got a response, which is really surprising. And it was totally legit. It was a call that had taken place the morning of September 10th to the Harrison County Sheriff's Office. The guy is pretty much stating that, hey, I think I have Bigfoot on my trail camera. Who do I need to talk to about this? And they, oddly enough, the Harrison County Sheriff's Office transfers it to the Texas Game Warden. That might not be odd. That might be their routine. I'm still trying to figure out why it was transferred over. I haven't really been successful in finding out why it was transferred, but it was transferred to the Texas Game Warden, and a Texas Game Warden went out there to investigate what was going on. I have the 911 call. I have the call sheets, so we can construct a picture of what took place out there. And I do think it's interesting because it's not an outlandish 911 call that you hear you've heard some other Bigfoot calls that are, oh, this guy's in my front yard, or I'm getting attacked or whatever. I'm not sure if those are 100% legitimate. I have here the folder that the USB was given on for these calls. I have it. And there was a series of 3 calls that were taken. We have the reports for it. This is 100% a legitimate Bigfoot 911 call. It was real. It happened. The sheriff's deputies were deployed to the area to figure out what was going on. They took the photo. And so we have all of that stuff. And the people who've seen the photo, it's interesting. I'll just say that. It's pretty interesting. And I'm working on the video. It's going to be coming out on my channel, going into detail of what the witness said. I spoke to the witness. I have the unredacted police reports, which is not normally the case. Normally they'll redact the identity of the person, but I have his unredacted. I was able to reach out to him, and at first he was like, how'd you get my number? But I told him how I got him. He wasn't upset. He was just surprised. He gave me a little bit of a rundown on why he called and the background of the game plan being there and the background of the area where he lived at. And it's all really interesting stuff. And the photo, I think when people see that, they're really not going to know what to make of it. I'm interested to see what people think when they see it. And if you haven't heard the phone call, check it out. It's pretty interesting. Again, to me, it's one of the more credible calls because the guy seems very calm. He just wants to know what to do with this photo. And yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I'd really like to know what people think when they see the photo. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm excited for the follow-up because when I watched that video, I was pumped, man. This is what gets me excited. But the UFO community, I feel, does a lot of FOIA requests. I feel that unless they're just not talking about it, I don't think there's a lot of people in the Bigfoot community that do FOIA requests. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm surprised there isn't more people doing it. I think I've seen one other person do a FOIA request for the subject, but you would think people seeing this and you've heard about these calls being made, and it seems like it would be a more frequent thing that law enforcement of some nature would have some type of record of calls taking place or emails being passed, which emails it's funny. I can actually talk about this here coming up. So I did a FOIA request for the skunk ape, Florida skunk ape in Mammoth State Park, because I know there had been some coming out, reports coming out, and I was interested in doing that. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me do a FOIA request for these skunk ape reports. And so I did that, a request for I believe it was Florida Parks and Wildlife or something to that effect. And I wrote it up and said, hey, give me any records you have of a skunk ape being reported in the park, being seen, or anything like that. And not long after that, I get a email saying we have 0 reports, 0 anything of skunk ape or whatever. I was disappointed about that. But I pretty much took the same FOIA request that I had written, and instead of skunk ape reports, I put Bigfoot emails. When I did that, I got 15,000 hits when I did that. So the Fish and Wildlife, Florida Fish and Wildlife, I have an email stating they have 15,000 emails containing the word Bigfoot in them. So that's a little interesting there. So I'm working on getting a portion of those emails. Unfortunately, with that amount, 15,000 emails, they wanted to charge me about $3,000 to get all those emails. So I kept narrowing it down. I was like, how much for 1,000? Still too much. How much for, 800? Still too much. So I think we settled on 250. That's what I can afford right now. So hopefully I'll be able to get the rest of those at some point. But I have coming to me, hopefully very soon, 250 emails. Don't know the contents of them, but they do relate to Bigfoot. So that's going to be an interesting find once I get those. And I might need some help digging into that. I don't know, Jeremiah, would you be interested in helping me dig through some of those?
I'm not going to say no, my friend. I'll never say no to looking through Bigfoot stuff. It's such a fascinating topic, the whole FOIA thing. I'm personally interested. So 2 times you found incident numbers on websites regarding the situation. Can you go into any details about how you were able to find those, or any tips regarding that?
Yeah, it's really just a lot of digging, man. The national parks, they release their incident summary reports for a yearly thing. I think I want to say towards the end of every year. I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
But they just released the one for 2023, and it's really hard to go over. It's just like a notepad, if you will, of documentation. It looks like code almost when they release it. It's not easy to look through, but you're able to find some interesting stuff on there. It is not keyword searchable, so that makes things a lot tougher. And the other thing that kind of got harder is that before, if you wanted to do a FOIA request, there was a website portal that you were able to do that was provided by the government. You could go on there, submit your FOIA request. You could submit one request to multiple agencies, and you would get your, it was submitted, here's the process, or here's where it's at now. And they kept you up to date of how your request was doing and where it was at. Unfortunately, that website was removed last year in September. So now if you want to do a FOIA request, you have to go to the organization that you want to get that information from and write the email, detailed email. There's no portal for you to check the process. You just have to keep sending emails back, which is a little disappointing. It did make things a little bit harder, but it's still able to, you can still do it if you just know, if you have something that you want to look for, you have some information, anything would help. But yeah, it's getting a little bit more difficult, but it's still doable.
Gotcha.
And I would really hope that more people jump on it. I know, like you said, the UFO communities, you're seeing a growth spurt with everybody kind of doing their FOIA requests in that area. And I think if more people start doing this stuff for Bigfoot, we would get some really interesting information.
I even think that before I get into anything more, and I'm going to have a disclosure before the beginning of this episode. If listeners choose to do stuff like this, you've already heard that there could be cost to do it. So do your due diligence before you do a FOIA request, and you are responsible, of course, for anything that happens. But I think that if the Bigfoot community, if more people were to do this like you were, it could lead to things, maybe even like more disclosure, or who knows where it could lead.
No, I agree with you. I'm looking for breadcrumbs. When I submit these FOIA requests, I'm looking for phone calls, reports, obviously, emails, anything that breadcrumbs to something bigger. I'm really hoping to maybe someone has like a video or a really clear image that they shared and hasn't found mainstream or something like that. I know it's far-fetched, but you never know. I mean, I've already got one picture doing a FOIA request, so it's like, what else is out there? And I've only been doing it for about a year. We've got the phone call, we've got the picture. I've had some other reports. We talked about the Mammoth Cave one. I can talk about another incident if I have a chance. It was one that took place in Dino Park, Colorado.
Okay.
This one was weird, okay? I found this on the National Parks website again, and it did have a summary there and an incident summary report number. The incident summary was like 3 sentences. And it says, campers see pile of bones and claim to have seen Bigfoot in the area. That's all it said. Really short, whatever. So I was like, wow, that's weird. I had the report number, so I wrote the FOIA request, sent it out. I get back the typical national parks leaflet, the way they would send their email back, the way it's structured. Blank, completely blank. And I'm like, what's going on here? I've never had that before. And I've had multiple requests that I've done with them. Why is it blank? So I look at the email that followed that, and I'm looking through it, and it says, it does say that there was Bigfoot reported there. People had seen strange bone piles in that area. They reported to the ranger. The ranger was medically incapacitated to go out there and check, is what they said. He refused to go out there and check. And normally with these FOIA requests for the national parks, we have the name of the ranger, we have the name of the person that submitted the incident report. This was completely blank, and I think the reason they said it was medically incapacitated is because they could use a HIPAA exemption and not have to give out that ranger's information. To me, this one was really weird. You have people saying they saw this, and you have the ranger saying, hey, I'm medically incapacitated. Is that really what happened? Or are they just saying that because you can go all types of ways with it here. And it was smart for them to say he was medically incapacitated, because for that, we'll never know who this person was, because it's a medical condition or whatever. It falls under the HIPAA exemptions, which FOIA unfortunately does have some exemptions that, and it's weird when you get an exemption for Bigfoot, because it's like the exemptions are typically for national security, ongoing investigations, things of that nature. To get one on a Bigfoot exemption on a Bigfoot request, that's a little interesting. I've had a few, and I can talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, for whatever reason, this guy claimed to be medically incapacitated and refused to go check out this big sighting that took place in Colorado.
This is getting wild, dude. Oh, man. I got some questions for you. Can you walk us through what, in your mind, makes a best case scenario or successful FOIA request? Like how you go about that?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. If you can find an incident number, you're golden. If you had one of those, you're going to get some information back. And if you get an exemption for that's even weirder. I think that's weirder than getting no information if you get an exemption. But definitely, if you have a report number, if you have a date and time of what happened, if you have some context of what happened, names, street names, general areas, things of that nature, what was reported, keywords like that, bone piles, like I mentioned in this other one, bone piles, things like that. But if you can find a report number, you're going to be in good shape there. Doing broad searches like I'm doing now, hey, Bigfoot emails or whatever, you might be able to find some stuff like that for sure. But again, the way I structured them, I was looking for certain information. So you could just get bombarded with nonsensical like email links and stuff from them saying, oh, hey, this is all we have or whatever. So yeah, I would say really, if you have a date and time, location, things like that, they're probably going to be your best bet. If you have a report number, incident report number, you're gold. Yeah, it's really just, and the other thing is you can just throw some hooks out there like you're fishing. It doesn't cost anything to do a FOIA, but if you want the information, that might cost you something. Okay,
so it's going to get to a point where they'll be like, yeah, we have stuff, and if we go any further, it's going to cost you money. That's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I can go into detail on another one that I did recently. Okay, this one I've been working on. I should be getting this one back here. Yeah, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the Beast of Bray Road, the Wisconsin werewolf.
Are you kidding me?
Okay, I did a DNR request for the Wisconsin DNR or whatever.
No way.
Said, hey, I want all the information you have on, I'm not going to give the keyword away, but yeah, because it's still an ongoing process. I don't want it to get ruined. I said, hey, I want all this information we have on this stuff or whatever. And they've been very responsive. And they're saying, okay, cool. We'll give you that information, but we're going to bill you up front. And I'm like, okay, wow, that's kind of, but could they have, 15,000, 150, reports on this stuff? That's really interesting. Would I be mad if they're like, hey, it's going to be $5,000, but we have pictures and audio and all types of, who knows? I don't know, but
goodness.
But I am working on that, and they've been very responsive, and I'm hoping it's not a crazy number. And if it is, you might see me on like a GoFundMe or something, because I want that information, man. I definitely want it. And
yeah, exactly.
I think people need to know it. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people in the Dogman community that would be very interested in what the Wisconsin DNR has. Oh my goodness, that's amazing, Eric.
Yeah. It's not only the Wisconsin DNR, but I'm also doing it's the city Elkhorn. It's Woolworth County. I believe it's Woolworth County. I did it for the sheriff's office there. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember. I believe the gentleman's last name. I shouldn't say his last name.
Yeah, don't.
But he was featured in a documentary. Yeah, he was featured in a documentary about the subject. And he had mentioned this werewolf folder they had. Now, if a government employee has a werewolf folder, that's public information. You can't hide that. And so I sent that out saying, hey, I want that. I want anything and everything. I'm like, here's a clip of him saying he has that, or he wrote that.
Yeah.
So you guys cannot deny that. An employee says he has that. And then multiple people in the sheriff's office knew about it. So I want it. And I haven't heard back from them yet. That was only a couple of days ago. But the DNR are very responsive. And they have about 20 days to respond. Different FOIA requests, different areas. They'll give you a deadline. In Texas, we have 10 days.
Okay.
Wisconsin, they have 20 days. It's ticking down, man. Ticking down. We're going to get some type of response.
So that answers one of my other questions. What I was going to ask you, can this be used for other cryptids too? And I mean, there's the answer. You're looking at a Dogman right now.
Definitely.
I would assume.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was never really sure about it until I started doing the digging. And I'm going to tell you about another one here, and I might get some flack for this one, but I have documentation for it. Yeah, this one, I'm sure you've heard about the LBL stuff and all that stuff.
Oh, man, Eric.
Hold on here, because there's been a lot of talk about that stuff. And there's a supposed massacre that took place and everything. I'm not sure how I feel about that. And I wanted to find out.
Yeah.
And so I did a FOIA request on it, and I wrote one that I felt from all the information online fit what the information I was looking for. And it was a little bit harder because we really don't have anything solid on that. So you have to speculate a lot on that. And I did. And so I sent that in, and I didn't get anything for that time period. Okay. For the time period of, I think they said it was like late 70s, 80s, this event took place. Didn't find anything there. So I'm not really sure about that, but I did get a report from 2021. A man was fishing there in the lake, and I have the report here too. The man was fishing in this lake, and he reels in a skull. He reels in a skull on the end of his line. He thought it was a catfish. And we have no idea who that person was, how they died, anything like that. But we do know this person fishing reeled in a skull in that lake. The police were called, I believe the coroners and everything like that, they were all called to the area. And I have that report with some redacted information in there, but I was never really sure on the LBL type of stuff. And I'm still not sure, but finding that was like, that's creepy and weird. And no one knew about it. No one reported missing or anything like that. So I can't really say anything other than what I'm seeing on the reports. And that to me, that's pretty creepy. You're fishing out there, you think you're catching a big catfish, and you reel in the human skull. Now, I don't know about you, Jeremiah, but when I go fishing, I'm not thinking about reeling in a skull.
Yeah, that's not on my goal list to get the skull. Just a nice bass would be good. That's incredible. And hats off to you for really, you're thinking outside the box. I thought you were just a Bigfoot guy, but man, you're going all over the place. Another cool thing I got from that is that at the beginning, we're talking about national parks, but you're also going into DNR. And I was going to ask so let's say I'm from Iowa and I'm looking into certain state parks or forests or something like that. It sounds like it's being very, you have to find the email to send the request to, and then you're just sending an email that says, hey, I'm looking for things of this nature. Do you actually have to drop the phrase, I'm doing a FOIA request, or will they know what you're doing?
No, you have to say this is a Freedom of Information Act request.
Okay.
Under this statute. And typically I'll name the statute of, if it's a federal statute, I'll name the federal statute for the FOIA request. If it's statewide, you can find that online. I'm not sure the one for Iowa, but yeah, you can find any. It is best to state that. And with a FOIA request, you want to be as direct as possible. Again, like I said, just changing a couple words can get you some information, or it can get you not denied, but it won't get you as they'll just be like, oh, we have no information like that. Change a couple words and then get 15,000 results. So yeah, it's an interesting gamble when you do one of these FOIA requests. What you're going to get, if you're not going to get anything. And I've had some that said, like I told you, the Florida Fish and Game. I had multiple ones say, no, we have zero on this. We have zero on this. I'm telling you about a lot of the successful ones. But with that, there's been a plethora of unsuccessful ones that I've had, where I've seen reports that have been reported on the BFRO or the Wood Ape Conservancy, where they have maps and stuff like that. And I'll look and see, hey, was anything reported here? And I've come up dry on a lot of that stuff. For every 10 you do, 20 you do, maybe you'll get one or two that has something that you might be able to bite on there. But yeah, there's a lot of failed ones for the ones that I've mentioned tonight. But we're still getting information here. That's the main goal. We want to try and make, at least what I'm trying to do is make this a little bit more serious, to where if I'm talking about it in a public setting away from the community, people will be like, wow, that's really interesting. And I can believe you because you have the documentation to prove it. And I think that might draw in some more people, or might get people changing their method. Maybe I'm not trying to change the world, but it would be awesome if more people reached out and did some of their own. Maybe they have some information, that an event that took place in their area, and we can help them do a FOIA request on it and see what we get. I'm always willing to help somebody out.
I've got ideas that I'm probably going to try myself. And you said you can do this with sheriff's departments as well. Now, I've heard some people, when they're looking to see if a sheriff's department or police department has info, they'll just call directly and ask. Have you tried that route as well?
I have tried that. The most recent one that I called was an event that took place in Washington. It was a sighting that was supposedly took place near a roadside. And the news agency said that the witness had contacted the sheriff's office. And so I called the sheriff's office and said, hey, I'm looking for this information or whatever. And they're like, no, we don't have anything on that. We heard about that too, but we don't have anything on that. And you get that from other reports that you're looking into. Again, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but one of the bigger 911 calls was the Bexar County in San Antonio of the homeless couple that said they had seen a Bigfoot tromping through the woods or whatever. So I did a FOIA request for the sheriffs, for the police department there, and they had no record of it. I'm not sure how legitimate that might have been. I know it was featured in like a couple of films and documentaries, but I wasn't able to find any reports, any documentation on any of that stuff. And again, I'm not trying to debunk this stuff. I'm just trying to, that'd be cool. Let me get the police report from the guy who went out there or something like that, the call log. But yeah, you never know without trying. It doesn't hurt to ask unless they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Then that might hurt a little bit, but you can always, you can say no. It sounds like it's not going to come out of nowhere on you. Yeah. Thankfully.
Most places will tell you in advance, or when you write the FOIA request, I'll write in the FOIA request, hey, if there's any charges or whatever, I'd like to be informed beforehand. And that's probably the best move you can do, is just writing that in the FOIA request. Hey,
good idea.
Any extra billing, let me know.
Let's take a hypothetical situation. Let's say you were to look into you knew a certain area of a state, a certain region of a state was very squatchy. Would you drill down, maybe look at certain county sheriff's office and then go one by one, or what would maybe your plan of attack be if you...
That's the way I've been doing it so far. Right. I've been going one by one. Yeah, I haven't really found any other way to do it. And I am going one by one, but one by one in the sense of like where the most reports I've seen taking place in areas like that. So starting off with mainly the more populated areas, like you said, most squatchy or whatever. Starting with those areas and working my way down, but yeah, one at a time, sending them out with as specific as I can, the information that I'm searching for. And yeah, it's some states are more, or some sheriff's office are more willing to accommodate than others. And some are like, you didn't fill out this thing properly or whatever, so we're not going to do your request, or we're going to deny your request. But you don't really get that from a lot of agencies. But no, like I said, I've tried several places here in Texas, and I've had a handful of success. And that's a lot of counties in my area. I'm not sure how many, but there's a lot in Texas, a lot of counties. So just working through it. And yeah, hopefully when I'm done with Texas, I'll move on to something else here.
Yeah, I don't think listeners need to realize it might sound scary, like calling a sheriff's office, but I think if you're just honest, and like I've done this myself, I called an office in I think it was Marshall County, Tennessee, and said, hey, have you had any Bigfoot reports? And I actually was able to talk to an individual that was involved with an investigation quite a while back, a few years ago, but he was like, oh yeah, I totally went to that area. And sometimes you never know what will happen unless you just try, and there's no harm in trying. But
not at all. Yeah, no harm in asking. And that's awesome that you actually got some information from a call like that. That's props to you.
I was surprised.
It can be a little scary calling the sheriff's office when you're attempting to find Bigfoot stuff or whatever. But you never know. You might have someone on the other line that gives you all the information you need. So who knows? I got some good ones, man. I'm working on a few. Every one of these I'm trying to make a video for. Oh, yeah. I'd like to do the Mammoth Cave video on the rest of these. I want to show the documentation for everything. Everything I'm talking about, there's some form of data, whether that be a phone call records, eyewitness statements, things of that nature. So I did the Mammoth Cave one, which showed all the tickets of the guy lying, pictures of the gun. We even have photos of his ID, even though they were redacted. We have the pictures of his ID, pretty much everything. And with this next one that I did for Texas for the 911 call, about the same. We have the call statements when the cop was out there, when the call got transferred, the 911 call itself, and the photo. So I'm trying to compile these into video essays, if you will, just to give everybody all the information so we can leave it where it is or maybe come to a conclusion and move on to the next one. Like the Mammoth Cave one, I think we can put an X into that one and move on to the next one. So we're here on this Texas one, and the photo, I hope for maybe we get some video analysis on it or photo analysis on it to get a breakdown, and maybe we'll get some more information on it. I am planning on going out to Harrison County, Texas, to speak with the witness, and hopefully that'll happen when the weather starts getting a little bit better here in Texas, maybe around spring. So I'm going to go out there, going to go to the location where the picture was taken and all that good stuff. But yeah, I have a lot of information I'm waiting to get back. And that's the thing with the FOIA request is they can take a few months to get back. I think the longest one that I was waiting for took 3 months to get back.
Oh, wow.
And that was part of the Mammoth Cave stuff. It took about 3 months for me to get information on that. So it does take a little bit of getting that stuff back. But I think I have a lot of irons in the fire that should be on their way back now. So I might have maybe a couple that I'm going to have to juggle to see which one I'm able to put out first. But the LBL one I might end up doing sooner than later because I had got that information about a year ago. Kind of kept it under my belt while I was doing some more research. But yeah, I mean, I have the report. It is heavily redacted, but it's there. And I'm just trying to get a little bit more information to break it down into a video. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm working on next, and the Texas photo one. So everybody's going to have a chance to see the photo, give their opinion. And I'm really excited about that.
Eric, I'm going to be honest, you're involved with a lot more cool stuff than I had realized. This is very exciting stuff. And
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. I really admire your show, and you've had some really amazing guests on, and the production quality is awesome, man. So you definitely deserve everything you're getting right now. Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate that. Do you have any fun investigative things you're involved with in your local area? You've got all these things going in other states, but anything going on home base right now?
Yeah, like we talked about in the beginning, the Brushy Creek has a long history of not only weird Bigfoot stuff, I guess you could say, but just a lot of weird stuff in general. Like I'll give you an example. My backyard, the childhood home I grew up in, about 50 feet away from our backyard, in 2014, they found 3 ancient Native American bodies there. We have no idea how old they are, who they were. We have none of that information. Unfortunately, because Texas, there's a law that allows the construction company to hire their own pathologist to examine the body or the bones. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to get some guy who's like, oh, nothing to see here. Go ahead and build the road or go ahead and build the neighborhood. That happens all the time. Unfortunately, we have no idea how old those people were, but we can gauge an idea from another ancient body that was found right along the Brushy Creek in Leander. I believe it was in the 1970s. They found an ancient Native American woman along the Brushy Creek, and they titled it the Leanderfall woman. In the 1970s, I believe they dated her to about 13,000 years old. Now, that was back then. With the advances now, it could be way older than that. And that was just right along the Brushy Creek. So people have been in this area for a really long time. The Tonkawa tribe would actually call this Takachue Puetsu, which translates to the land of the good water. That's what they called it. This was like their literal paradise. And the Tonkawa, they were an interesting tribe, man. They had full body tattoos, like what you would think with the Islander culture. They had full body tattoos. They didn't really wear a lot of clothing in the summertime because it gets crazy hot in Texas. But once a year, they would put on a big celebration for their deity, which was a giant wolf. And they would wear wolf pelts and just dance around for a few days and celebrate this wolf deity. And that's all in the area that we're at right now with all these strange encounter stories. And not only that, but I can't believe I almost forgot the Roman coin that was found in the 60s. They found a Roman coin right along the Brushy Creek again. And it was really strange because it was found at the bottom of an Indian burial mound. And the person who found it took it to the professor at the University of Texas. And there was a little bit of a controversy there because one professor didn't believe it was authentic from a Roman. He believed it was from a World War II veteran coming home and had collected that as spoils of war, was walking along the brushy creek and dropped it, and a rodent grabbed it and burrowed underneath, and that's how it got to the bottom of an Indian mound. That's his theory, at least. But the other professor knew the person that found the Roman coin. They had grown up together and been arrow hunting, and they learned under the same gentleman about how to relic hunt. And he had seen it. I 100% believe that guy. I believe it, but he would lie and all this other stuff. And the other guy, the professor that denied it, he actually refused to go to the area where they found it. He didn't go there until 4 or 5 years later. And by that time, things had already been constructed. There was a road, some other stuff. But yeah, just a lot of really weird happenings along the Brushy Creek area. And that's really what drove me to do my first documentary, was just accumulating all this really weird information. And I didn't mean for it to become a documentary. I just knew I was gathering this information. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but it ended up becoming the documentary. And through that, I actually found some more really weird stuff that kind of ties into the FOIA request. And I remember, if you remember at the beginning, I talked about FOIA requests I had done in my area for some Bigfoot stuff that took place. And I can talk about that if you want. It might get a little spicy there, Jeremiah. I just got to give you a heads up on that.
We can go for it and see what happens.
We can go for it? Okay,
right.
We'll go for it then.
I can always edit if it gets too weird.
Okay. I just wanted to check with you. It's going to get a little, Okay. So this in 2016, I'm just going to be straightforward. I was investigating some bodies that had popped up in the Brushy Creek. 2016, there were 3 bodies that, for one reason or another, ended up in the Brushy Creek. To this day, we don't know the identity of one of the people. We have no idea if it was a man, woman, how old they were. We have no information on that. The other 2 were men in their 40s. The police and everyone has says they died. They died from natural causes, and nothing to see here, no foul play. 2 of those bodies were actually 6 days apart. So it's weird that would happen like that. And this was all in the same year that the area I live, Round Rock, was named one of the top 10 safest cities in America. So you're talking about safest cities in America, but you have a couple of bodies popping up in the creek, whatever. And I started researching that. And when I started researching that in 2017, for whatever reason, we had a giant influx of Bigfoot activity. I guess you could say that. People were in groups, Facebook groups, and other talking around town and talking about things that were taking place. The Hairy Man Road had been closed for a while. They said it was for construction. A lot of really weird stuff happening. And that kind of culminated into a gentleman posting a video of this tall, skinny thing. I haven't seen the video, but everybody has told me what they saw. Multiple people told me what they saw. It was a tall, skinny thing walking across the creek in a certain area. And when the reason I heard about this is because I was in a Facebook group saying, "Hey, has anybody heard any more information about this stuff going on or whatever?" This was later. This was in like 2020. Later, when I started working on the documentary and stuff like that, and they said, "Oh, you need to reach out to this guy. This guy took a video." And he posted in one of these groups, and he got in trouble and all this other stuff. At least 5 different people told me the name of this person that put out that video, and at least 5 other people said that guy had been paid off. He had got in trouble or some weird stuff going on. Who knows? Not really sure. But in 2017, this is a fact. You can go and check it out. An agency, I'll say that, an alphabet agency, actually put out a reward for the capture or information to the capture of Bigfoot. This is all fact. You can go look it up. I have the emails that were sent from the chief of police in my area to an alphabet person. Not only a person, we know who this person was because it was in the email. This person that works for this alphabet agency was the head of that agency in Texas. And I did a little bit of digging on that guy. And in his bio, it says that he's in charge of secret information and at least 10 overt or covert secret bases inside of Texas. This is all in his bio. This is public information. This was the guy that the chief of police sent the email to. And then the guy responded saying, hey, we're going to send you all types of anything you need to capture Bigfoot. We're going to offer a $500,000 reward. Now, Jeremiah, have you ever heard of one of these agencies offering a fake reward?
Yeah, no. How did you get these emails?
Okay, we have them. It became public. It was public, and a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, this is a stunt for the local community or whatever." Well, if it was a local thing, why was a federal agency offering a reward for it? Okay, not only that, but the same day that reward came out, the information about the reward came out. There's a report on the BFRO in the same area, the same wording that this agency put the report out on. In the same area, there's a BFRO report, same date, a very detailed encounter from a person that actually took me 2 years to find out who this person was. But I found out who he was. And he had seen something going through his trash or his composting that he had in his backyard and seen something going through there. This was the same day this bulletin came out. All really weird. So it makes you think the agency monitoring that site and putting up fake stuff, or did they see it and decide to put out a wanted for that? Really weird stuff going on. Not only that, but the next closest report, it was the next day. The next day, there was another report. There was another report the next day about 10 miles east.
Oh, my goodness.
Someone had seen something crossing the road, and it jumped a fence at one of our state parks, the Balcones State Park, which is a really interesting, beautiful area that is weird because they don't let you stay overnight. They don't let you film out there. There's no drone stuff out there. Really weird area. I would love to do some stuff out there, but yeah, I eventually hopefully I'll be able to do that. But yeah, to me, this is like a smoking gun of stuff taking place. You're having all these accounts. This guy had said he had filmed something. Multiple people had said, hey, we saw the video that guy filmed. You need to talk to this guy. And I reached out to that guy, and he said, in very short words, he says, yeah, I did. I have all these emails and everything. He says, yeah, I did film it, and I signed a non-disclosure agreement. Sorry, I can't talk about it. Pretty much what he said.
Non-disclosure with who?
Told me the location. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And yeah, it gets pretty weird, man. To me, this is like, I don't want to say too much about like cover up or anything like that. But you remember, I was talking about breadcrumbs, finding some breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dang breadcrumbs here, man. There's a lot. Why would a federal agency put out a reward in a bulletin like that from an actual, not just an employee, but the head of the agency in that area? What's going on there, man? And $500,000, that's, it's all really strange and weird to me, man. And so I did a FOIA request on this.
Oh, my goodness.
I said, hey, this is the date. I have all the information. This really happened. Give me the information. And it was exempt. They said, sorry, we can't give you that information. We cannot give you that information. I'm like, what the heck? Like, why can't you give me that information? And they listed their terms. Like, this is either national security threat. It's an ongoing investigation. There are people that have of influence involved, possibly. There's a lot of really weird. It shouldn't have been an exempt. It should have just been, oh, we have nothing on that. That was a joke or something.
That says to me that everything that you said is probably true if they're like, no, we're not going to give you anything. That's nuts, dude.
Yeah, I've been trying to get an interview with that person, the top guy there, the one who put out this lawsuit. And a couple of months later, he retires. And now he works for a gigantic oil company as their security or as their whoever, their big security, drilling, whatever.
I'm going to tag allegedly onto my last statement just because I'm paranoid.
Yeah, I told you it was going to get a little... I have everything for this, man. I have the data for it. This is real. I have the emails people sent me, the messages. I have everything. I have the guy saying, hey, I signed a non-disclosure agreement. I can't talk about that. And he goes into a little bit more detail. I really won't say too much on that, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah, he went into some detail on it and gave me the location of where it was. Okay, not only that, but we're talking about 2017. I keep forgetting stuff now. It's popping in my head. We're talking about 2017. So in 2019, I'm sorry, in 2018, we had a giant cave-in in one of the neighborhoods off of Brushy Creek.
Okay.
There was a cave-in, and it went for, I think they said that they ended up finding like 12 chambers or something crazy. Airflow down there, water down there. And I'll just say that the person said, hey, I had found something. The guy who took the video said, hey, I had found something. And I told them about this area prior to the cave-in, this many months prior to the cave-in. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, whatever, but it was really interesting. And in this area, there are just so many caves. While researching it, I found a document from the University of Texas Spelunking Group. They documented about 300 caves in the area.
Oh, wow.
Now, they're estimating there could be around 3,000 caves undiscovered in the area. Some of these caves go for a really long way underground. I know there's a cave in Longhorn Cavern, which is south of us, that they just discovered these cats, prehistoric cats, that are like 3 miles underground in pitch black. They're like, how did cats get back here? It makes no sense. They're trying to figure that out too.
Like bones of them?
Bones of them, yeah. Multiple bones down there. And they really couldn't figure out how they could go miles in the darkness like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, really weird stuff. But just a bunch of caves, caverns, and weird stuff in my area. So I am working on a couple of more documentaries that should be out here soon.
That's
the
awesome.
next one is pretty much buttoned up. Yeah, and it takes a deep dive into the area. We're actually going into the Brushy Creek. I talked to some witnesses that had some really amazing encounters that are the typical Brushy Creek encounter. I don't want to say typical, but it's the same fashion of people being aggressively chased out of the area.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's something that goes back, again, to the 1960s encounter of Shorty Caldwell being chased out of the area off of Harryman Road. Almost every person I've talked to had said it was aggressive and wanted us out of the area. And I just thought of another one that had happened. I had got an email from someone that said that they had heard about, there was a video up on it too that was removed. They had heard about an encounter that took place off of the Brushy Creek in my county, where a school bus had stopped next to the tracks, and something had came out and hit the side of the bus. The kids saw it. The bus driver saw it. I was doing the digging to see if I could get some information on that. And then there was a video kind of describing a little bit of this. You can't find it anymore. The link is a dead link.
Scrubbed from YouTube, you think? Or
scrubbed from YouTube. And yeah, it was really weird. Wow. But I was trying to get some more on that. But it is just like a weird area, man. And not just Bigfoot related. There's just a lot of activity that I probably shouldn't talk about. But weird stuff, man.
You know what? I know Texas is your main goal, right? Because that's where your home base is. Dude, someday I would love to see you just go into Oklahoma Bigfoot and just find some stuff. That would be nuts.
I've done some a little bit of digging there. Oklahoma has some interesting FOIA logs, so I'll just say that.
Really?
They're not as easy to get some information. Yeah. Oklahoma and Louisiana, they are a little bit tighter. And not impossible, but I haven't got any information out of them yet.
Really?
But I haven't done too many. I haven't done too many out of Oklahoma. I've done a few out of Louisiana. I'm still coming up dry there, though.
It sounds like it's a challenging thing to do, but the rewards are worth it if you put in the time and you have the patience to do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're starting to get the ball rolling. We're actually getting data that can be measured in one way or another. And that's my goal, is to getting into this. I wanted stuff that's solid for people to look at. I didn't just want to just come up with more anecdotes and anything like that. I wanted to do something a little bit more solid, something a little bit more concrete, to where I could pass it off to people that might be a little bit better inclined to do some harder video analysis or audio analysis or whatever. And maybe we'll get some more answers from it. That's really the goal, to get as much information we can. And I think we're on the right path for that. Hopefully more people jump in and start doing some FOIAs. Next thing you know, we'll have a bunch of phone calls, a bunch of stuff. Looking forward to that.
And listeners, if you have done a FOIA about Bigfoot or other cryptids, feel free to reach out. You can email me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com, or put it in the YouTube comments for this YouTube episode. And I'd love to hear about it. But Eric, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. I've been looking forward to this one for a while, but do you mind sharing with the listeners how they can keep up to date with what you're doing, how they can contact you if they have any information they want to share with you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on YouTube. It's Media Palace. That is my channel here on YouTube. If you want to email me, it's ericmediapalace@gmail. You can also find that on my channel in the description of most of my videos. And yeah, if you'd like to watch the documentary, The Beast of Brushy Creek, it goes into detail of a little bit about everything in the area. It's streaming on Tubi and Amazon. It's also on my YouTube channel. I have the other documentary, The Legend of Harryman Road, on my YouTube channel as well. And that's a little bit more of the stuff going on in my area. But hopefully once I start getting more of these FOIA request responses back, you'll start seeing a lot more videos like the 911 call, like the Mammoth Cave video on my channel. So I'm really looking forward to putting all the data I have out there for people to dig through. And again, if anyone's interested in helping me out, dig through some emails or dig through some National Parks records, please let me know, because I could always use a hand.
That's awesome. Oh, man. Thanks for coming on, Eric. It's been a good time.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jeremiah. I really appreciate it.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list. Bush pilots in Alaska that have seen something from their plane. Retired law enforcement officers whose department had a large file for Bigfoot encounters. Individuals that have had Bigfoot encounters on their family property through multiple years and generations. Individuals who've had a face-to-face encounter in the state of Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, Alabama, or Mississippi. Individuals who've had a face-to-face encounter in the state of Oklahoma or Arkansas in the Ouachita National Forest. Individuals who've had a face-to-face encounter on Prince of Wales Island or surrounding area in Southeast Alaska. Any encounter in Franklin County, Texas. Hunters that have never shared what they saw in the woods due to fear of ridicule. Individuals that have had a Bigfoot tried to enter your house in the Honobbe, Oklahoma area. Any encounters that happened within a 20-mile radius of Northfield, Massachusetts and 25-mile radius of Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Encounters in the Enchanted Circle. Encounters in the Yosemite National Park area or any national park for that matter. Individuals that have lived a long life, don't care what people think about them now, and want to share what happened to them 50 to 60 years ago. I'm your guy to share your story. Individuals that live in remote wooded property and feel like they're under attack by Bigfoot after clearing their land. And lastly, any Bigfoot encounters where the individual saw what seemed to be an orangutan. Please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com if any of those fit what you've experienced. And for those where it doesn't fit, please feel free to reach out anyways. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. I'll see you back next time, listeners. New shows on Mondays and Fridays. I'll see you then.